Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How's everyone hanging on this late Wednesday evening? Before I get to the meat of the matter, I want to inform everybody watching that this coming Friday night, 11 p.m. Eastern Time, I'll be live with a new Dark Industrial Techno live stream. And this set coming up is going to be a reworking, remixed, and very much rebooted version of an old dark techno set I did and uploaded a couple years ago. So definitely be on the lookout for that this Friday night, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Look forward to seeing you all there. Now, I'm sure everyone is now aware of the words that Gene Simmons of Kiss said over the weekend regarding the death of his former bandmate, Ace Frehley. As you recall, this past October, Frehley died at age 74. What happened was that in the month prior, being September, Ace apparently fell down the stairs in his New Jersey home studio. He was immediately hospitalized, where he had skull fractures and a brain bleed. He was on a ventilator for a couple weeks, but there was no signs of improvement. And on the 16th of October, at the request of his family, doctors decided to take him off life support. Now, recently, over the weekend, Kiss were honored at the Kennedy Center Honors, hosted by President Donald Trump. The surviving members were in attendance: Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, and Peter Criss. And representing her late father, Ace Frehley, was Ace's daughter, Monique. However, I need to bring up these words that Gene Simmons said in an interview over the weekend as well, that really pissed off Kiss diehards around the world. In an interview with The Post this past Saturday, Gene said the following words: Ace refused advice from people that cared about him, including yours truly, meaning Gene himself, to try and change his lifestyle, in and out of bad decisions. I'm not a doctor, but falling down the stairs doesn't kill you. There may have been other issues, and it breaks my heart. He concluded by saying, you reap what you shall sow, unfortunately, and that is the saddest thing. So Gene was implicating that it was bad decisions that led to Ace's death. However, Ace had made the claim time and time and again that he had been sober for about 20 years. Now, you recall a couple years back in a Q&A seminar, somebody in the audience asked Gene, will there any chance that Ace would rejoin the band for this upcoming, at that time, farewell tour? Gene said some words, but ended it with, no fucking way. This prompted Ace to clap back and say to Gene, hey, I've been how many years sober, haven't had a drink since God knows how long. He also went on the record to say Gene Simmons was a sex addict who at one point tried to hit up on Ace's wife. You also recall the situation where Frehley called in on Eddie Trunk's show to say that he had some disturbing secrets about the Kiss legacy. And he was going to reveal all those secrets unless he got a formal apology from both Gene and Paul. Well, that didn't occur. Frehley called in on Trunk's show once again a short while afterwards, stating that Paul had called him and said directly, "Go fuck yourself, I'm not apologizing." Now, recently, earlier today, Simmons issued an apology for his comments over the weekend on his X account. He said, quote unquote, "On reflection, I was wrong for using the words I used. I humbly apologize. My hand to God, I didn't intend to hurt Ace or his legacy. But upon reviewing my words, I see how it hurt everyone. And again, I apologize. I've always loved Ace. Always." He also said that, quote, "I have a long history of getting very angry at what drugs do to the families and friends of the addicts." So Gene was in the right to apologize for those words. Thank goodness. Because you recall, he was getting all sorts of flack from not those comments he said over this past weekend, but for other stuff he said about him years prior. Now, you're probably wondering to yourself, geez, those alcohol issues were years ago. He's clean now. He's been sober. Why can't you just make amends with one another, for crying out loud? You know, I agree. They should have repatched things a long time ago. However, in a way, you got to look at Gene's point of view. And I'm not just speaking on Simmons' behalf, but also those out there who's had spouses, relatives, friends, family, who've had drug and alcohol issues time and time and again. Let me give you an example of what I'm referring to. You have a wife. She starts drinking heavily, night after night after night after night, neglecting you, your kids, her friends and family, mother, father, yourself, your mother and father included. The alcohol has to come first. She gets into a couple of DUIs. She gets arrested for getting in a bar fight. She gets in trouble at her job. The management is noticing that she's coming in drunk all the time. The woman tries to stop drinking. She swears up and down that she's going to stop. She's going to get better. But in a short while, she's back on the booze. Something happens again. She swears she's going to quit finally this time. That doesn't last. Again, she goes back to the bottle. And it repeats itself over and over and over again. We've seen this happen many times. I've heard many stories about it. After a long while of that, the husband's trust starts to shrink massively. And he's going to start saying things like, you've been telling me this time and time and again. You've been telling me you're going to get clean. You've been telling me you're going to get help. But I don't see no effort. I don't see nothing. This has happened so many damn times. And eventually something happens where the woman has no choice but to get help. Otherwise, she's going to die. I'm sure parents have had this with their kids when they fall into drugs and alcohol as well. I remember there was a TV show that me and my ma saw on syndication where a mother was not buying what her daughter was telling her. The daughter had drug issues in the past. She keeps trying to tell her mother, I'm straight now. I'm getting better. I'm doing the best I can. But the mother is like, you said this time and again. I just don't believe you anymore. I'm thinking maybe that's what's going on in Gene's mind when it comes to Ace's issues and his death. Let's not forget, Ace was known to be a heavy drinker during Kiss's heyday. Now, let me say this, and this is from me only. Yes, I agree. Gene was in the wrong to say those words. And it's good that he issued that apology. What I think Gene and Ace should have done all together was sit down, those two, and Paul and Peter, have a long ass talk. Whatever issues they had built it up inside of them had to be said right in that conversation. Instead of letting everything build up to where it's just implode. They should have all sat down, worked on all those issues, a therapy session if you want to call it. But that should have been done a long time ago. Do you guys and gals agree with what I was saying? So what are your thoughts about what Gene said over the weekend and his apology? And also, I'd like to hear from those who've had spouses, friends, relatives who went through addiction issues themselves. I'd like to hear your stories in the comments below. In the meantime, subscribe to my channel, hit that like button and that notification bell, and look forward to seeing you this coming Friday evening, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Dark Industrial Techno live stream, reworking of an old previous set of mine. I'll see you there. Take care.